right. We're going to build a win for the Titans against the Saints this weekend. Brought to you by the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Can I start with one specific question for you, Zach, to answer? As part of our Building the Win, brought to you by the Kingston Group. Did I mention that it's brought to you by the Kingston Group?
3 times.
Am I out of line in saying that I think the Titans are better potentially along both lines of scrimmage? Is that crazy?
Well, so are you saying, to elaborate, offensive line versus offensive line and defensive line versus defensive line? Or are you saying the Titans offensive line versus the Saints defensive line and the Saints offensive line? Like, what are you exactly comparing?
Good question. I actually think if you did O-line versus O-line, you could lean Titans. And if you go D-line versus D-line, you definitely would lean Titans. So it could be both. But
Okay,
I was thinking more the actual matchup within the game. When the Titans have the football, could they actually have the upper hand? Let's say even just inside interior offensive line, maybe not at tackle, but maybe the interior. Do the Titans have potentially the upper hand on their offensive line versus Saints D line? And I think it's pretty clear that the Titans have a better defense, like the defensive line of the Titans versus the Saints offensive line.
The defensive line is probably in most games going to be the best unit on either side of the ball, on either team. Like that's probably going to be 9 times out of 10 the best unit. So, wow, I would call you crazy if it's just on paper, the offensive line players versus the defensive line papers. But I don't think that's necessarily what you're saying. And maybe I'm overstepping and putting words in your mouth, but I would assume that you're including that the way that the Titans offense will be structured, the offensive line is going to win their matchup versus the Saints defensive line, but not necessarily because of the 5 players that are on that line.
I think that's correct. It's a little bit more nuanced than just like we better than you.
Yeah.
And again, talent wise, I'm not sure how many defensive lines. Well, I need to rephrase that. Talent wise, I'm not sure how many times on paper you're going to see a Titans O line and say they're better than the other team's defensive line. Like talent wise.
It's the exact opposite of the defensive line for the Titans. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So to me, I don't think you're crazy if you're using the context and nuance that we like to use on this show. No empty calories. So I don't think you're crazy. Now, if you were coming here to tell me that, hey, I think that the tackles are going to be fine, Cam Jordan's going to only have 1 sack and stuff like that, then I'd be like, I would call you crazy. Because, I mean, this could end up being, and we're going to talk about week 1s later, but this could end up being very much like a Chandler Jones performance, except for take out Taylor Lewan and Chandler Jones and swap it for Cam Jordan for Chris Hubbard. But I think that because you have a different offensive coordinator and a different offensive philosophy stylistically, because it looked like Derrick Henry when he was asked about how much of a difference will we see between the offense this year in week 1 versus the offense last year. He was asked that today, and I probably just butchered the question by PK, but PK asked it, and he gave this smirk and a smile, and it was kind of like he's being cheeky about it because everybody has talked about all offseason that are the players that this is going to be a better offense, and they are excited to play in it. So I feel like that that style of play is going to mask a lot of the offensive line, and that's what it has to do. You cannot go into a game where you are relying on your offensive line to hold up for 3 seconds or more on average every drop back.
Well, and I think this is basically, you're exactly right with what I was kind of getting at, which is, do I think they can scheme around one glaring defensive issue, Titans offense? Like, can we take Cam Jordan out of the game with a specific game plan, be it play action, being it pulling Skoronski from one side to kick out so that the interior offensive line play is free to run and Derrick Henry has space? Like, the key is, I think the game plan, there's very few teams where I look at the interior of their defensive line or even the entire front line with the front seven baked into it and say, I think the Titans can run the ball on them. And I think the Titans can do it if they have a smart game plan from the coordinator and from the scheme, and they're willing to force the safeties to back off with some early threats, maybe on first down, throwing the ball. I don't know, perhaps. Like I think that they can find space for Derrick Henry, especially in the interior of the offensive line. And if you can make those quick hitters, you can take Cam Jordan flowing down the line or rushing the passer kind of out of the play. And if that happens, then I think they can win that matchup. I don't know how many receivers, if I know Traylon Burks is out there, but like how many receivers are going to win a lot of one-on-one battles in the secondary? How many guys are going to be streaking wide open? I don't know about that. That's where
it should be all of them. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins will have Marshawn Lattimore on him, but the last 2 times that they have played, and I see Saints fans throwing this a couple of clips up of I think the last time they played, and Marshawn Lattimore looks like he's manhandling DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has gone for over 100 yards every time that Marshawn Lattimore has been on him. So my guess is first play of the game. I know you could bet what it may be.
6-yard
play
out.
action, baby. It is a play action pass, and I definitely think that's going to be a pass. But in my mind, I feel like the way this is probably one of the easier defenses they will face, not including your bottom tier teams, because technically, right. I think everybody's kind of is drunk on the Falcons Atlanta juice over there, and they're kind of forgetting that the Saints are a pretty damn good team with a better quarterback now.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they can win the division.
I think it's one of the easier divisional contenders that the Titans will face, that the offense can take down that defense fairly easily. Because I mean, it's one guy on every level, but it's a inside linebacker with Demario Davis, it's Cam Jordan, and it's Marshawn Lattimore. Well, DeAndre Hopkins can manhandle Marshawn Lattimore. Scheming around an inside linebacker is fairly easy. And then it's just focusing on Cam Jordan, which you can help Chris Hubbard with some heavy jumbo sets. Maybe put Dylan Radins out there to help them.
12 personnel.
Put a tight end out there. I mean, to me, this is a perfect first game matchup. I like this matchup way better than I like the Titans versus Giants matchup last year, because I think Brian Daboll is a way better coach than Dennis Allen. We talked about it on the podcast, but Trevor Penning is just like a few personal fouls guaranteed this game. Jeffrey Simmons and Tara Tart will make his life a living hell. And Dennis Allen does not know how to technically keep a team in check. And this isn't a entirely different offense that Derek Carr is stepping into. It's one that has been put on tape a few times. I mean, not only do you have Andy Dalton-esque games, which is not technically the same. I mean, obviously, Derek Carr is a way better quarterback than Andy Dalton, but they're the same prototypical step back passing quarterback with limited mobility. But it's also something that Derek Carr's put on tape a couple of years ago. It's the same kind of offense that he's almost been in, quite frankly, his whole career. Yeah. So all the tape's going to look good. And you got Chris Olave, but he's no Devontae Adams, and you don't know what Michael Thomas is. Like, if you were building a win, like what we are, and building a ideal first opponent outside of the bottom feeders, this is an ideal first opponent on the road, in my opinion.
Alvin Kamara suspended for the game. Another benefit for the team. I want to get to the defensive matchups in a second, but I think going back to, first of all, I'm going to go play action, 7-yard out, quick out with maybe a shotgun set with a play action read to Derrick Henry and a lightning quick out route to DeAndre Hopkins, first down, gain of 6.5, 2nd and 3. That's my prediction for the first play. Only because I saw it on the first play of every practice session. so that's what I'm going to go with as a guess.
Watch out. They're going to pull this show because you're giving away the competitive advantage of that.
And, well, they didn't do much play action in practice, so we'll see. I think the other matchups, though, to me, let's say hypothetically, the receiving core doesn't find the space. Let's say hypothetically Lattimore has a good game, that Hopkins is Hopkins, but he's 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards. Let's just say it's like an okay debut, but he's not a game changer because they focus on him and they want to take him away. Burks maybe isn't 100%. I'm going to go kind of not worst case scenario, but like this is the thing that we've been talking about all camp, and it's the thing that I want to see the most from the offense is the creativity with the positionless pieces, which is Tajay Spears, which is Chig Okonkwo, and which is technically Traylon Burks to some degree, but mostly it's Spears and Chig. And I want to see what are you doing with those guys that is different than Todd Downing? What are you doing with those guys that makes me excited to see your ability to come into a game with a plan, with a scheme, maximizing your weapons and doing it in an efficient way week in and week out? And I just think that's the job of the coordinator. That's the thing that Todd Downing couldn't do. He was too predictable and too basic and the same shit over and over and over again. Like one of my favorite phrases that is not used enough in sports talk because of the FCC is fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Training camp is the fuck around period. We are now into the find out period. And Tim Kelly's been fucking around all summer long. And now I need to find out. I want to, what does it actually look like when the bullets are flying? And I want to see how they use the new, exciting, interesting, and dynamic and versatile pieces. And that's what I want to see from him. And when? Is it 3rd and 8? Is it 3rd and 2? Is it you know what I mean? Like I want to see the decision-making process from Tim Kelly on full display. And again, on the road, underdog by a couple of points, a team that's not terrible, not great, but not terrible. I agree with you. It is a good first week test where you're going to learn a lot because you're not playing a garbage cupcake team, but you're also not playing a team that's just clearly better than you. So I think you're going to learn a lot this week because I think it's a good matchup.